Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Lab podcast. I'm here joined by Alex Smiley, my good co host for today, as we get set to head into another phenomenal offseason where the best part of it all, right here for the NFL, is the NFL Draft 2025 edition in Green Bay. As we get set for a huge day that will make a lot of teams better and potentially some teams worse. Let's get it going. What do you have here? For the start of this, 1 through 32 is obviously what the slate is. I'm going to be the first overall pick. Alex will have number 2. I'll be number 3, and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this. Alex, my first overall pick is Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. I really debated this one between him and Abdul Carter, but I guess it's been the last couple of weeks, it's been more leaning towards Cam Ward going in this selection. And I think that the Titans are going to take their franchise, well, they hope to be their franchise quarterback, with the first overall pick. As I kindly toss this over to you for pick number 2. Who do you have the Browns taking?
Yeah, I mean the Cam Ward pick was pretty much a slam dunk. It's all signs are pointing towards they're taking him. Um, but the Abdul Carter slide it ends right here at pick 2 as Cleveland goes to try and create arguably the best pass rushing duo in the league. Like that is just one scary thought. Abdul Carter on one side, Miles Garrett on the other. I think you go and get that and you fix your quarterback need next year in a better class because if with the quarterback situation right now, it doesn't matter who they draft, they're going to suck again next year. So you might as well get the best player available, suck again next year, then go get your quarterback. So I think Abdul Carter makes a lot of sense here, and that is one dirty pass rush duo for the future.
Yeah, I love that addition, but I have to go with the number 3 pick. It's the Giants. I think for this one is another slam dunk. It's Travis Hunter. I really like the fit here. I mean, you made this one easy for me. It was going to be between him and Abdul. I really didn't know which one to really pick, so thank you so much for allowing me to not worry about that. As I select Travis Hunter with this pick instead, I think Travis Hunter is a phenomenal fit for the Giants. I think he can play receiver, but in a limited role. Let Malik be the one, let him be the 2, and play mainly cornerback, in my opinion, for this Giants defense that's desperately going to need that on the back end. I think that makes a lot more sense for him. So go ahead and give them Travis Hunter at number 3 as I toss it back to you for the New England Patriots, the division rival, at number 4.
Yeah, the Patriots, like going into the offseason, was kind of a toss up because they had just so many needs. But then the way they kind of attacked free agency, they spent a lot of money on defense. They went and got Stephon Diggs. The one position group they haven't really touched that much would be offensive line, which makes me think that they're going to draft a guy. And for a while, everyone was saying Will Campbell. And then the combine happened, and everyone was saying, oh, Will Campbell can't play guard. His arms are too short. But then at his pro day, his arms ended up measuring longer, and that happened for a lot of people. So a lot of people are thinking maybe the combine was just measuring short. Um, his arms do look like they will be long enough for him to be able to play tackle. And either way, even if he moves to guard, he is the best offensive line, just overall prospect in the draft. And you just need talent up there. So you maybe try him at tackle, doesn't work, you move him to guard, then you have a slam dunk of a guard. So I think here at pick 4, it just makes a lot of sense to go Will Campbell.
Yeah, I like that fit for the New England Patriots, but for my pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think this one would be a lot more interesting considering in my own personal mock draft, I had Mason Graham going to the New England Patriots. So for this matter, it's a little more interesting seeing that he's still available for this team. However, they did cut Christian Kirk. They do need a wide receiver 1, and I think T-Mac would
Oh,
fit
wide
very
receiver
well.
2, but
But I'm still going to go with Mason Graham. I think he's the best defensive lineman in this entire draft by far. Like D tackle wise, not defensive ends. Don't come from my head because Abdul Carter exists. I know. But D tackle wise, I think he is the best in the class. And whether you have a good corner or a good defensive end, I don't think it matters too much because you realistically just need somebody to play and either get to the quarterback or stop the quarterback from throwing the ball to them. And I think in this draft, I think that it makes a lot more sense for them to address the trenches, as I have Mason Graham going at 5, tossing it back to you for number 6 for an interesting Las Vegas selection.
yeah, this is very, very interesting. I mean, the way the board fell, Ashton Genty
Shadur,
just kind of just
Ashton
seems like a
Genty.
pick here. Shadur here, Jade Barron, Will Johnson. They really need a corner. There's so many different ways they could go. I really don't know what they would do. This is kind of like the first like real toss-up pick. I feel like the top 5, I kind of like the direction that's going. And then here is kind of where I think the draft like really starts. And I'm gonna go with Shadur because Tom Brady seems to have a big interest in him. He seems to really like him. Pete Carroll's gonna want to start off his regime with a young guy to come in and replace Geno. I get they just traded for Geno, but I
They
know
did
Pete Carroll
sign him to
obviously.
a 2-year extension today too.
Yes, and that's part of it. But then you draft Shadur, you let him sit for a couple years, and then when Geno's up, you already have his replacement. You don't have to go worry. You don't have to go find that. So I think this just makes a lot of sense for you to go get your guy. Again, Tom Brady seems to really like him a lot. And Tom Brady's a lot of influence over that team, being a minority owner and kind of being like the head of football operations there. Honestly, like like Mark Davis said. So I think Shadur makes a lot of sense there. I mean, maybe they go Genty, maybe they go Jade Barron. I mean, there's definitely a lot of directions they could go. I think Mason Graham would make the most sense if he was there, but he's not there, so it's kind of a toss up after that.
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting selection there for Shadur Sanders. But we're going to move on. At number 7, the New York Jets. In my draft, I had Will Campbell, which you so gracefully took with the New England Patriots pick. So that leaves the floor wide open, really, here. There's a lot of different things I could see for the Jets. I think that maybe a receiver could be in play. I don't think they need a running back. However, I do think that one thing they've needed for a long time is an offensive lineman. And I think that it's very interesting here with how this board has played out. I'm going to lean with Will Johnson here or Malachi Starks. It's one of them. I
Mm.
don't really know why. I'm gonna go with Malachi Starks. I think Starks is a great safety, and I understand it's a little bit higher than a lot of people probably expect him to go, but I don't think that the offensive line class is super, super great for the New York Jets. I think there's a couple guys you could still take. I think it'd still be a reach for a guy like Banks at this spot. I feel like there's still some other good guys, and I think in realistic terms, if that's how the board shakes out and they don't get anybody out of those top guys, I think they probably trade back at least a little bit and then get an offensive lineman. That would be my guess. But for this, I'm going to go with Malachi Starks as I toss it back to you for pick number 8 with the Carolina Panthers.
Very, very interesting. I've been seeing like Will Johnson and Malachi Starks drop a lot lately.
Yeah,
Malachi
me too.
Starks due to being a safety and having a down year last year. Will Johnson due to medical. So be interesting if one of them still or both still went in the top 10. But this is now I'm the Carolina Panthers, and I think here is where the first defensive or the first cornerback goes off the board, and I'm not going to go with Will Johnson. I'm going to go
Are
with
they
Jahdae
there?
Barron. He seems to be rising up the boards a lot, and I think the Panthers could really like him because he's the versatility to play outside next to J.C. Horn or inside and be a slot corner. You can kind of move him around, do a lot of things. They spent a lot of money this offseason on shoring up the defensive line, but they outside of extending J.C. Horn, they didn't really do much to a secondary that was pretty bad. Yes, the front seven and the run game was worse, but it wasn't like they had a good secondary at all. It was J.C. Horn and a bunch of scrubs. I mean, yeah, you could go Tat McMillan here, and that could make a lot of sense. But with how much the offense looked better towards the end of last year, you're going to lean on your offensive line and your run game. You're going to help for Bryce Young and Xavier Legette to improve. You already have a veteran there with Thielen. You have some other young guys like Jalen Coker, Jatavion Sanders. You have some young pieces you hope to take a step. I think here it makes more sense to try and work on a defense that was historically bad last year. And I think this is another step in that with drafting Jahdae Barron. As I toss it over to you for the Saints pick.
Yeah, division rival New Orleans Saints probably not too happy that they're going to shore up the secondary, but they're going to get a wide receiver to pair against him. I think they take Tet McMillan. I think that the Saints kind of love this kid. I think he is that deep threat just that they've really needed. Obviously, Marquez Valdez-Scantling played a great role for that, and I think that Tet McMillan's just a very good wide receiver. I think at the next level, he could be a wide receiver 2 to Chris Olave. I understand wide receiver 2 at number 9. People are going to be, ugh, but I do think that they're a 1A, 1B type situation, not 1 and then 2. I do think that it makes a lot more sense, though, to say the least, for some of these guys. I think that there's a lot of different things you really have to take into accountability here. And I think that one main thing for me is that Kellen Moore is the head coach of this team. I think he's going to have heavy influence on this pick. And if they see a guy like Tedoroa McMillan there, with the injury history of Chris Olave, I don't think that they're going to be able to pass that up. Go ahead and give me T-Mac to the New Orleans Saints as I send it back to you for number 10 with the Chicago Bears.
Thanks for passing me up this alley-oop as I dunked the easiest pick of the draft away. The Bears take Ashton Jeanty. I mean, they need a running back. Ben Johnson's their head coach. It's a match made in heaven. It's Jahmyr Gibbs all over again. DeAndre Swift sucks. People need to stop looking at box score numbers to think he is good. He is not a top. I wouldn't say he's
top
I would
40.
take some backup. I wouldn't even say he's top 40. I would take some backups over him. I think DeAndre Swift is that bad. He is blind in the backfield. I don't think he's ever hit the right hole ever. Tries too much lateral, and behind a struggling offensive line last year in Chicago, it was really bad. Yes, they improved it, but I think they improved it so they don't have to worry about it in the draft. Their defense is still pretty decent. They're bringing over I think Dennis Allen, who, yes, he's a bad head coach, but he has proven to be a very good defensive coordinator. So I think that defense will be good. You have good wide receivers. You shirt up the offensive line. You're set at quarterback. Your one glaring weakness is running back. Ben Johnson loves to run the ball. He has no problem taking running backs early. And I think this is just kind of a slam dunk pick to go and get one of the best running back prospects of recent memory in Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, number 11 is the San Francisco 49ers, and actually I would have them trading back in this situation. I think that the board has fallen a little unconventionally for what they like. I think that they could maybe move back and select an offensive lineman, which is what I have here, and I've seen this a ton mocked to these guys. It's Josh Simmons. I love this kid from Ohio State. He can play tackle or guard, I think, at the next level. Obviously, tackle would probably be the better position for him, but I think that he could slide in if they really need him. They definitely need an offensive guard or an offensive tackle after Trent Williams leaves as well. So because of this, I do think that an offensive lineman would be the biggest need for the 49ers. I think they still have so many needs. And the reason I say trade back and get one is because you have so many needs at this point. You just need to get some picks so you can actually address those needs in the draft. You don't have enough picks to really go out and get those starter level players that you're going to need to compete next season. And for that reason, I would have them trading back. But we'll stand pat here at 11 and take Josh Simmons from Ohio State as we move to the Dallas Cowboys at 12.
Yeah, the Cowboys could go in a lot of directions here. I think offensive line outside of Tyler Smith at offensive line is struggling a lot. I think if Jeanty was there, it would have made sense to go Jeanty. They could go wide receiver. But I think that the best player available out of their needs, out of front seven, defense or offensive line, wide receiver, I think the best player available out of that, I would probably say, is Armand Embu. I think he is probably the best tackle left in this class. I think you can move Tyler Smith back to guard like you had when they had Tyrone Smith. And you can kind of have that left side of the offensive line kind of set up for years, and you can just kind of focus on that side as you try and fill in spots on that right side. And I think that'd be a really, really good place to have him. And I think that would improve that offensive line tremendously. And in turn help the run game. I think they probably would go running back day 2, or maybe trade for James Cook. Who knows? I think they're definitely going to address running back, but it doesn't make any sense. So instead, you go and get an offensive lineman to go and help that run game.
Yeah, I like that a lot as we move into the next pick, which is 13 with the Miami Dolphins. I think this board is interesting for the Miami Dolphins. I think that edge rusher is still a big need, even though they really addressed it with Chop Robinson last year. But I think an even bigger need is the offensive line, and obviously you took who I was going to take with Armand Membo. But I do think that Calvin Banks is a solid, decent player to get here at this point. I think Calvin Banks, this is a bit of a reach right here, but honestly, the fact that you lose out on both of the top offensive linemen gotta hurt here. The offensive guard and center draft class isn't really that great this year, so I think they take the best remaining offensive lineman in my eyes, and that's Calvin Banks Jr. here at number 13. As we move it to the Indianapolis Colts at 14, what do you got?
Thanks for tossing me up another easy
Yes.
slam dunk pick. Tyler Warren. They
Yeah.
desperately need a tight end. They've needed a tight end for years. You want to continue to build around Anthony Richardson. I get he's not the presumptive starter with them signing Daniel Jones, but I think AR still wins out that battle, and you need to get him more weapons because, yeah, on paper, his weapons didn't look that bad last year. But if you watch some games, I swear, every single time I watched the Colts play, Anthony Richardson would go and make some great play, and then the receiver would drop it, or there were no receivers would get open, or he'd go. Yes, he had his issues. He was very inaccurate. He threw a lot of picks, just tried to throw it down the field too much. I'm not saying he was perfect, but I watched multiple drives last year when I was like just randomly putting on a Colts game or whatever, like with my Sunday ticket, where he's making all these plays and then their weapons just can't do anything to help him. And I think Tyler Warren is one of those tight ends who has developed enough as a blocker where you can use him every down, but also has the versatility to just do so many things. You can line him outside as a wide receiver. You can play him in line. You can play him as a fullback. You can play him in so many different positions. He's very athletic. He's very safe. Like he's a safety blanket. He has great hands. And I think that he would just be a slam dunk pick here as you kind of get another weapon to help build around Anthony Richardson. As in free agency, they attacked more of their defensive needs. I think you go offense here in the first round.
Yeah, I like that fit there. James Pierce Jr. is my pick here for the Atlanta Falcons. I think that they love James Pierce Jr. They've seen him enough. They've really worked out with him 3 different times already, from what I've been hearing from Atlanta Falcons fans. I think that this is a very good pick for them. I think they need an edge rusher pretty desperately, and I think they've kind of fallen in love with somebody who I think is a good pass rush specialist. I don't think he's going to be the greatest in the run defense, but I think that what they're looking for and what they need perfectly fits the description of what James Pierce Jr. is. So go ahead and give me the defensive end from Tennessee as I toss it back to you for pick 16 with the Arizona Cardinals.
I think this is where the Will Johnson slide ends. Arizona desperately needs a corner. I mean, their top 3 corners are Sean Murphy Bunting, Max Melton, and Garrett Williams. That's pretty bad. That
Yeah,
is really bad. Like Sean
yeah,
Murphy Bunting could be a nice 2, and then Garrett Williams is okay slot, and then Max Melton could be a nice 4. You get Will Johnson to be that 1, and that's actually a pretty decent room. It goes from being pretty bad to pretty decent. So I think it makes a lot of sense there to go and get who I think is probably the best corner in the class. He's just falling due to medical concerns. He had a little bit of a down year last year. People have some, I guess, they have some issues with how he just was having medical injuries and stuff like that last year. So I think that will cause him to fall, but I think it makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals to bet on him to stay healthy because the talent there is just insane.
Yeah, I really think you're right there. And number 17, I think you could really go just plug and play whichever one of these defensive ends slash D linemen you want to throw here for the Cincinnati Bengals. But I am going to go with who, in my opinion, is the best. It's one of the 2 from Texas A&M, and it's Nick Scorton. I think he is better than Shamar
Oh,
Stewart for the fit for the Cincinnati Bengals. He is more of a pure
okay.
pass rusher, which is exactly what Trey Hendrickson is. And obviously, we're seeing the dispute with Trey Hendrickson. Obviously, because of that, I think that they'll go out and make a safe pick here. I definitely could see an interior D lineman, especially Kenneth Grant makes so much sense there too. Kenneth Grant, pair him up with his good buddy Chris Jenkins back at Michigan. I think that would make a lot of sense as well. You know, obviously, of course, I can't say enough things about Shamar Stewart. I think he's a great defensive end as well. But for the specific need of the Cincinnati Bengals, that being a little bit more pass rush, a little less run defense, I think that Nick Scorton fits that mold for them. As I move it back to you for pick 18 with the Seattle Seahawks.
I think you're the Seahawks here, and you just take who you think, whoever is the number 1 offensive lineman left on your board here, does not matter position. I think you take them, and I think that would be Gray Zabel. Yeah, PFF has him listed as a tackle. He played tackle in college. He's going to be a guard in the NFL. That doesn't matter because it's not like the Seahawks need guard, honestly, more than tackle. At least they have a franchise tackle. Yeah, the right tackle is really bad, but at least they have a franchise tackle in Charles Cross. So then you go and get someone like Gray Zabel to pair with him, throw him on the left side. And then again, you have that left side where you can run Kenneth Walker, you can run Zach Charbonnet behind, and you can have a really, good rushing attack, which is what Mike McDonald wants to develop. I mean, you go and get Clint Kubiak. You saw what he did to the Saints run game last year before every single person on that team got injured. Can't really fault him for the end of the season when they were playing a practice squad peewee lineup. So, but at the beginning of those first couple of games when the offensive line was healthy, when the receivers were healthy, when the running backs were healthy, their run game was just really, really good. So I think you add an offensive lineman here and you get back to that ground and pound formula that the Seahawks are known for. Yeah, so I think Gray Zabel's the pick here.
I actually really like that pick. I think that even Tyler Booker would make sense too if they really want to go with somebody that's pure interior guy. Although I do think that
they could go like Josh Connerly, but my thing with Connerly is he's a little more raw, I think, and you really can't afford to swing and miss with an offensive lineman with how bad your line was last year. You need someone, and I think Zabel's a little bit safer. Yeah, if you hit on Connerly and boom, you got both tackles of the future. It's a lot easier to get interior offensive linemen. Like, it's a more replaceable position, but I think you just can't afford to miss here with how bad that line was last year.
Yeah, I actually have Connerly going to the Eagles. If you guys want to see my mock draft, I would love that. There's a little bit more of a raw player, but we'll get into that a different day. As of right now, though, I am the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at pick number 19, and I'm going to go with my slam dunk pick, Shamar Stewart. I think it fits perfectly here. You need an edge rusher pretty badly. I mean, you can even move one of your guys like Joey Troyan, Shoyinka to left outside linebacker if you really need to make room on the edge game. But I do think that you guys do need at least somewhat of a pass rush help. It's that front seven that really needs some tinkering. And I think you could go Kenneth Grant here again, another guy that you can talk about endlessly. But I think that Shamar Stewart will be the pick here for them. The A&M Aggies with 2 in the last 3 picks and my last 2 picks. As we move it to you for number 20 with the Denver Broncos, an interesting team.
I think this is another slam dunk pick if this is the way the board falls. I mean, the Broncos don't have a lot of needs. They're a very balanced team. They have no needs really on defense outside of maybe linebacker, but I wouldn't even say that. I think they were just injuries last year when healthy. Their linebacker room should be better. On the offensive side of the ball, though, they have 2 big needs. They need a safety net slot receiver. They need a running back. There's no running backs really here at 20 that make a lot of sense. Maybe you kind of want to reach on Omarion Hampton, but I think it's better value to go running back in the second round here and go and get like a Junkins or a Caleb Johnson's or something like that. So that kind of leads you to receiver. My opinion, who I think will be the best wide receiver as a rookie, I think is the safest guy, is Emeka Egbuka. I think he will be the best rookie wide receiver next year. Maybe he won't have the best career. He doesn't have the potential because he's not great outside. He hasn't really shown that he can play outside. It limits his ceiling, unlike a Matthew Golden or a Tet McMillan. But he absolutely dominates in the slot. And you're Denver. You already have your outside speed guys, so you don't need Golden. You already have your big body guy in Sutton. You don't need Tet McMillan. You have no slot receiver play at all. So there you go with Emeka Egbuka. Did you mean to give me that thumbs up there? Was that
I did not. I was just sitting here like this.
That was so weird. Did you see that show up on your screen?
I did not mean to do that. Anyway, next up though.
I don't even know why you did that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I actually at number 21 have the craziest prediction of the draft. It's the Steelers and it's Jackson Dart. I love this fit. I will die on this hill. I think Jackson Dart will be a first round pick for the simple fact that they love to glaze quarterbacks. I think Jackson Dart's not as good as a first round pick, but I think the Steelers need, paired with the absolute glaze that is for the position of quarterback, I think Jackson Dart will be the pick here. I love the fit for Pittsburgh. I think he makes a very good case to be quarterback 1 over Mason Rudolph, who's the starter as of now.
Well, they might get Rodgers.
Yeah, I think this debunks that. I think this finally puts an end to Aaron Rodgers maybe signing here. So go out and give me Jackson Dart to the Pittsburgh Steelers and one of the most shocking picks of the draft, at least in my opinion. As I toss it back to you for the Chargers, will they have a Michigan reunion?
I've actually mocked Dart there a couple of times. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think they will have a Michigan reunion. There's two
glaring guys.
There's 2 glaring guys, and I think they go with the one who helps their offense more because their defense is better than their offense was last year, even with having an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. I don't care if people say Justin Herbert's still an elite quarterback. I want to see him get some actual weapons. I mean, his tight end play last year was might have been the worst in the league. It was really,
Yeah.
really bad. After I can't even remember their starter last year. After he got injured, they were playing some
Will
guys I
Dissly.
haven't. Yeah, after Disley was battling injuries, they were playing some guys I have never heard of before. And
And
I'm like, who is this guy?
all you need to know about the Chargers tight end room is they had Donald Parham Jr., who's a converted fullback who they drafted back in 2021. So he
Yeah,
was playing
Parham and
tight
Disley
end.
were like their top two. Then they both got injured, and then it was some practice squad dude from undrafted dude from like last year I never heard of, and I'm like, yeah, they need to address this. And Loveland's also the guy who can block, and because he can block and he can receive, because that's a big thing. You need someone who can block if you're going to be in the Charger system, because they love to run the ball. Loveland has proven that. I mean, he was in a run first attack in Michigan the last 2 years, and he was the starter there. And I think he's slid down boards a little bit this year, but I think that's not too really much fault of his own. I think it's due to the fact that Michigan had some of the worst quarterback play ever last year. He was getting open, they just couldn't throw him the ball, or they just didn't see him because they sucked. Like, I think he would be a very good complement to Ladd McConkey and is a very nice 1-2 duo for the future for Herbert to build around.
Yeah, I think this is kind of fallen a pretty interesting spot here, and I think that Jalen Walker to the Green Bay Packers makes a lot of sense. I would love this pick so much. I don't think he'll fall this far, considering the. I mean, he could, but it's just depending on which team likes which edge rushers the most, because obviously there's like 7 or 8 different guys. I don't think they're all gonna go this high, but I think it's just depending on which teams like who better. And in this situation, I don't think Jalen Walker will fall this far. However, he has in this. So I will give the Green Bay Packers Jalen Walker a much-needed edge rusher. I think that he'll pair very nicely. I think the Luke Van Ness pick is kind of flamed out to this point. I think he's still an okay guy, but I think that Jalen Walker is going to come in and fill a void for the Packers defense that they haven't been able to fill for a long time. So go ahead and give me Jalen Walker as we move into number 24 with Brian Flores and his Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
it's like
mean,
Brian Flores.
the Vikings made so many moves this offseason. They filled so many holes. It's kind of hard. Like, I think I would be pretty surprised, honestly, if like the board fell this way, that the Vikings would be pick 23 and they'd actually pick someone. Like, the
Yeah,
top
it's
defensive
true.
backs are off the board, the top offensive linemen are off the board, and those are probably the two spots you can look at the most and be like, there's kind of needs, but not even, because they spent so much money
I
on the
feel
offense.
like they'd trade back and take a safety.
I think they would 100% trade back in this scenario, but since they aren't trading back, we're not doing trades or anything. I think that makes a lot of sense to take a safety, and I think they go with Nick. They go with Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. I think his athleticism and Brian Flores' aggressive style defense, I think, could pair very, very well together. His ability to be able to play man coverage as a safety, he's probably the best out of all the safety in the class. He is the best man coverage skills for sure, which fits Flores' man coverage scheme. So I think it's a perfect fit. But again, I would be pretty surprised if they actually stayed at 24 and pick someone. I think it just makes so much sense with how the board fell and the fact that they need picks desperately. I think that they definitely would not draft here and try and pick up some picks in the later rounds. They don't have a second, and they have like 2 day 3 picks. So they have like 5
Yeah,
picks in total.
yeah, they're not looking too great. However, at number 25, I have the Houston Texans, and I'm gonna go with offensive guard out of Alabama, Tyler Booker. I'd be genuinely shocked if this is not an offensive lineman in some sort of way. If it's not a tackle or a guard or a center, whatever it may be. If it's not an offensive lineman, I would genuinely be shocked at this pick. I think that Tyler Booker is the best interior offensive lineman left. I think you could move him to center if you want, but I like Scruggs. I think he'll play center for them next year. I think you put him at one of the offensive guard positions. And honestly, you get some very good value for the Laramie Tunsil trade. So you have the other picks in the back to go make other offensive line moves to address the tackle needs. I think you go and get the interior offensive lineman here in the first round with Tyler Booker as we move into number 26 with the LA Rams.
Yeah, I have the LA Rams taking Jihad Campbell from Alabama. I think they desperately need a linebacker. I think this is a perfect fit. I think that he can play all over the place. You could blitz him. He played a decent amount of time in the defensive line, but he also he has the athleticism. He has the size to be an off-ball linebacker. That's where he played mostly at Alabama, and I think this fits perfectly. The Rams linebackers last year might have been like some of the worst in the league. They were really, really bad. So I think this just makes too much sense here. So yeah, I have the LA Rams taking Jihad Campbell.
I like Jihad Campbell, Alabama. I think he would be a good player. Back-to-back Alabama picks, but not here. I think that actually, you know what? We're gonna say Jalen Miller out of Alabama.
Yeah.
Run read option with him and Lamar. It's over.
With him being the
Anyway,
quarterback, obviously, because Lamar's a running back.
out of everybody left on this board, I feel like they're gonna want an offensive lineman. I think that they're gonna go out and going to get a Josh Connerly Jr. I think he's gonna play offensive guard for them. Honestly, I understand he's a little bit more raw, but so was Tyler Linderbaum coming out. And most importantly, for me at least, in this situation, is Josh Connerly will be developed by a coach like John Harbaugh. I think that's going to be absolutely phenomenal for his development. I think that a couple of these head coaches are going to be able to get the most out of him, and I think that this is one of the fits that would make the most sense. So go ahead and give me Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. I know a little bit of a reach, and I was really tempted to say some other players, but I do have them here.
Yeah, and then I think Detroit, I think you're pretty happy with the way this turns out. Someone like Mike Green is falling. They need another defensive end who might end up being like their top defensive end, depending on how Aiden Hutchinson returns from that brutal leg injury. Hopefully he returns well, but those injuries are really hard to come back from. So, and even outside of him, that pass rush is pretty bleak. They don't really have many needs because they are a very talented roster. So I think you get Micah Green here and you kind of to replace the production that Za'Darius Smith had last year. I think that's a perfect fit there.
Yeah, that kind of leaves the board in an interesting spot here for Washington. I do think they need edge rusher, and they are still some very good ones available. I think you could really take your pick out of Mykel Williams or Tyleik Williams, the two Williams guys that we continuously mess up their names. But I do think that they're going to go with Mykel Williams out of Georgia. I think they need that edge rushing help after losing Jonathan Allen, who I understand is a D tackle, but they still need that defensive lineman presence. I think that he'll bring a lot to the front seven. I think he's more of that run stuffer that Jonathan Allen was as Daron Payne goes after the quarterback and then whoever they have on the opposite side. So go ahead and give me Mykel Williams here as we move it back to our beloved Buffalo Bills at pick number 30. And I think we both know how this one's going to go.
It's one of two guys, I think, here. The fact that Kenneth Grant is – oh, wait. No, Kenneth Grant's still available. I completely blanked.
Yeah.
Kenneth Grant. I mean,
slam dunk.
Yeah, that's a slam dunk pick there. Really, if Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, or Derek Carr, if any of those three is there, it's a slam dunk pick for the Bills. The fact that Kenneth Grant is there, though, the best one out of them. Yes, there's concerns over how raw of a prospect he is, per se. And he's not a great pass rusher right now. But we don't need him to be a great pass rusher year one. We signed Larry Ogunjobi for a reason. Larry Ogunjobi is going to kind of be that one-tech pass rusher next to Ed Oliver. We need him to come in and just be that big guy to take up blockers and stuff in the run game, and that's exactly what he can do off the bat as he learns and develops and becomes a better player. And that ceiling, if he reaches a ceiling, oh, Lord have mercy. I mean, with him and Greg Rousseau on one side, quarterback might as well just kneel the ball so he doesn't get crushed and killed. Like, just dreaming about that.
Well, thank you. Moving back to number 31, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think they are going to go with a defensive lineman. It's Derek Harmon out of Oregon. I love the fit for Kansas City here. They need that kind of presence on the D-line, especially after the fact that they could not get to the quarterback in that Super Bowl game. I think that they're going to learn from their mistakes here of not investing in the D-line. Oh, we have Chris Jones. We don't need anybody else. Yes, you do, and you're going to address that need right here with number 31. Go ahead and give me Derek Harmon out of Oregon as I wrap it up with you, Philadelphia, the defending Super Bowl champs. Who do you got going to the reigning champs out of the NFC?
They're in a weird position. They're the Eagles. They don't have too many needs, but they did lose a lot in the defensive line. They lost Josh Sweat. They lost Milton Williams. They lost Brandon Graham. They they lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So you would think they probably go defensive end or like defensive line or safety. The thing is, they were so deep at defensive line and with the top two safeties off the board, I don't know if they go with that. But what they do need is an offensive guard. They have their two tackles, they have their left guard, they have their center. Last year, they had Mekhi Becton playing guard. That didn't work out. Then they traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to go and get Kendrick Green or Kenyon Green from the Houston Texans, but he sucks. Maybe they're going to try and start him, and he can be like a reclamation project like Mekhi Becton, but I just don't think I just don't think he's going to be very good. And with a lot of the top defensive linemen off the board, I think what makes a lot of sense here is Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. He has the versatility to play tackle if desperately needed, if someone goes down, but I think he is the best guard available in the class. Yeah, he played a lot of tackle last year, but that was more so just because Josh Simmons went down and they desperately needed him to. When he plays a guard, he was like on the way to earning first-team All-American status. He was that good. And I think that offensive line, you add him, Lord have mercy. That would just be so good. So I mean, they could go with like a Walter Nolan, a Tyleik Williams, a couple other guys, Donovan Ezerike, Landon Jackson. There's a lot of guys they could go with.
I really would like Donovan Ezerike. I really would.
Yeah,
I want them to go with somebody that can develop for a pass rusher too. Like you don't need him year one, in my opinion.
Yeah, because they already have so many guys. I mean, as long as you have Jalen Carter on the defensive line, it makes everyone's job easy.
Yeah, right. I do think that's a very good mock draft. There's a lot of different guys that are left on the board. Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, of course, Xavier Watts, other players
Walter Nolan,
Tyleik Williams, even so many other players that could still go in the first round that we don't have projected. Thank you guys so much for watching, though. My name's Thomas Bailey, alongside me, Alex Miley. Thank you so much for joining me for the draft. As we thank you guys for watching every single episode. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe, as we do appreciate it. Every like, every subscription leads us to a better future in this industry. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Once again, my name's Thomas Bailey alongside Alex Miley, and we'll see you guys next time.